Hey guy, how are you all beautiful people are doing? Hope all of you are doing fine, and yes, this is a new movie, Mito Adopt Naruto. Mito activates a seal and wakes up with a 5-year-old blonde Uzumaki child leaning over her in what's called the Forest of Death. She is not pleased. So let's start without any delay. Mito woke up slowly, the sound of a forest filtering in through her ears, the dry taste of not having drunk water before she slept, the slight scent of decaying leaves topped with the scent of healthy ones, dappled patterns of light dancing across her closed eyes. Hey, lady, you all right? This isn't a good place to sleep, a kid, young, perhaps 5. No slight rasp that would have already been there if he'd been an Uchiha, not that they would have a 5-year-old out on patrol. Mito finally managed to properly open her eyes, finding a small yellow-haired child with blonde hair leaning over her. She blinked up at him, and he smiled brilliantly. She gently smiled back, noting the lack of baby fat on a face with 3 whisker-like markings, or were they scratches? Either way, a sure sign of lack of food for extended periods of time. Baby fat was not easily lost, and she was very dismayed at what that implied. "Hello child," she replied gently. Yeah, hello and all, but this still isn't a good place to sleep. Something might eat you." Mito managed to sit up, sensing the barest traces of chakra in her system. She'd be wiped out for a while more, unable to perform any jutsu. Well, maybe she could do the clone jutsu now, for once in her life. Being an Uzumaki meant she was pretty much guaranteed to never do a standard clone. Tobirama's shadow clone, however, was easy as pie. "What do you mean something might eat me?" "Well, the crazy snake lady said there are big thingies in here that wanna eat people. I've never seen one though," he added the last bit as almost an afterthought. Mito frowned, extending her senses a bit. The guppy, something Uzusho's people tended to call their children, had a lot of chakra for someone his age. Heck, he had a lot of chakra for people twice, or maybe even 3 times his age. "Guppy, what's your name?" "Naruto Uzumaki." The guppy chirped, grin dimming a little as if he expected a negative response. Mito blinked. Oh, that explained the large amounts of chakra, but there was something else, something not quite there, but still quite influential. She was not as good of a sensor as Tobirama, but she could sense the Kyuubi in the child. An impressive seal indeed to hide the creature from even her. Apparently emboldened by her lack of a negative response, the guppy forged ahead. "What's a guppy?" Mito's expression changed into horror. The guppy, an Uzumaki child, didn't know what a guppy was. "It's a baby fish." Naruto tilted his head cutely. "Why'd you call me a fish?" Mito composed her expression, forcing a soft smile onto her face to hide the horror, and wished to go strangle Hiruzen, who'd clearly left the guppy on his own. That teenaged brat would know her fury for this. It's a fond nickname the Uzumaki use for their children. Naruto wrinkled his nose, confusion was written across his face. "There are more Uzumaki?" Mito was taken aback. "Guppy, where are we?" "In Konoha," came the bright reply. Mito spread her senses just a bit, finding that it was her husband's chakra in the trees, marking this spot as one of the many parks he'd set up. Why would it be dangerous? Her husband wasn't exactly fond of putting people in danger. "Who's the Hokage?" "Gigi." Mito frowned. "What's their name?" Naruto shrugged. "I dunno, I forgot. I've always called him Gigi." Mito frowned deeper. "Would his name be Sarutobi Hiruzen?" Naruto squinted and tilted his head. "I think Maybe. Mito narrowed her eyes. Come Guppy, I believe I need to have a chat with your Hokage. A very long chat. What's your name? Naruto asked, blinking up at her innocently. Mito Uzumaki, she told him kindly, smiling at him. She stood up, brushing her robes off. Idly she noticed her hair had come undone and was now cascading down her back in a stunning shower of bright red. Naruto smiled back, bright as the sun itself. Are you related to me? Possibly, I will have to check with Hiruzen to make sure, Mito allowed. If you must, you may call me Ni-chan. Naruto beamed, offering her 2 of her 3 clips, 1 of her hairpins, along with the mostly ornamental golden crest that actually hid her Fuinjutsu supplies. She clipped her bangs back with the clips, tied the crest around her waist, and stuck the hairpin in a hidden pocket in her right sleeve. Come Guppy, Mito commanded. Do you know the way out? Naruto nodded happily. This way. He led her out, ducking between trees, jumping over the occasional log, and generally being a child. Mito followed and watched him fondly. Her children were no longer this small, hadn't been for a while. They'd been self-sufficient for what felt like ages, doing missions, and generally earning their own keep. They got out of the park soon enough, and Mito narrowed her eyes at the rock face that had been empty last time she saw it. There are 4 faces up there. Yeah, the 4th Hokage died fighting the fox. He's a hero. I wanna be just like him. Naruto beamed at the monument. I'm gonna be Hokage, believe it. Mito smiled kindly at him. I'm sure you will. He looked taken aback, as if no one had told him he could be Hokage. Come along, Guppy, let us find your Jiji. Mito moved off with a slight rustle of her robes. Naruto quickly moved up beside her, holding tentatively onto her sleeve. She permitted it, knowing that the Guppy needed the extra reassurance. As they walked through the village, Mito got a lot of odd looks, and the Guppy got looks of hatred and disgust. A quarter of the way to the Hokage's tower, Mito bent down and scooped Naruto up in a single motion, bringing him up to rest on her hip, almost half hidden by her hair, which she hadn't bothered to try pulling up again. He didn't protest, just held onto the collar of her kimono. She would probably have to exchange it for something that leaned more towards mission wear, as that seemed to be what most people favored. She made her way into the Hokage's office, keeping her head high, and wrapping Naruto in a protective blanket of chakra that kept him from sensing the pointed blasts of killing intent and powerful chakra that let her into the tower. No one was with Hiruzen at the moment, except for what she assumed was Anbu, at least not what her rapidly improving senses told her. She opted to storm right into his office, hair lifting slightly around her head and waving in an imaginary wind. Which reminded her why she usually had her hair up. Women from the Hogo-Uzu branch of the Uzumaki clan were notorious for their bloody red hair, powerful chakra, and how their hair seemed to act of its own accord when they were angry. Hiruzen looked up as the door crashed open, and Mito was happy to see the horrified look spread across his face before it was carefully hidden. The Anbu were clearly going to try and protect Hiruzen, but she quickly eliminated any thoughts of that with heavy oppressive chakra and killing intent together. Naruto she left wrapped in calm chakra, keeping him in his own little bubble, immune to anything happening outside. Hiruzen Sarutabi, you have a lot of talking to do, Mito said, dangerously low. She switched her attention to Naruto for a moment. Guppy, I'm going to have some very strong words with your Jiji. I can make it so you can't hear it, would you like me to do that? Hiruzen seemed to only now recognize that she had Naruto balanced on her hip. One of the Anbu, a Hatake, if her sensing of his chakra was right, defied all logic, and jumped down, making a move for Naruto before she stopped him with a very pointed glare that had him freezing in place again. Naruto shook his head, burying his face in the shoulder of her kimono. "No, I'll hear." Mito smiled softly at him. So much like her husband, and it was adorable. She turned back to Hiruzen, and the fierce kunoichi she had never stopped being was back to the surface. "Sarutabi, you are in so much trouble. Why was an Uzumaki kid, and a Hogo Uzu one at that, if Tobirama's teachings about sensing bloodlines, clans, and relatives through chakra is correct? The guppy should be in Uzusho. Why isn't he?" Hiruzen gulped. "Well, Mito-sama, you see, Uzu was destroyed at the beginning of the Second Shinobi World War." Mito raised an eyebrow. "Did you not assist them?" Hiruzen winced. It was clear he did not want to talk about it. "We didn't get the news until it was all over. There was nothing we could do." Mito glared daggers at him. "I am of half a mind to take Naruchan here there myself, as most of the seals will most likely be active, and we would be safe there." Distress started rolling in the Hatake's chakra. Good, the emotion-sensing part of her sensing was coming back. He clearly wasn't saying anything, but Mito could tell he wanted to. Hiruzen stared at the guppy as though he wished he had been deafened. "You can't do that, Mito-sama." "Oh. And why's that, Hiruzen-kun?" She placed sarcastic emphasis on the suffix, and he winced. "I'm in my prime, you clearly are not. Clearly, you can't force me. Was there something about the guppy you don't want him hearing?" She was absolutely smashing any calm and dignified air she'd put up before, but right now, she just didn't care. The guppy was clearly alone, and not doing well. That calm and dignified persona had been at least partially to counter Hashirama's boisterous cheer anyway. Hiruzen actually winced this time, distress, a sense of she's right, and fear running through his chakra. The Hatake twitched, distress tainting his normally white chakra a darker color. Mito had won, and she knew it. The guppy was still half hidden by the long curtain of red pouring down her back and shoulders, and she had all of the cards in her hands. "I will be taking custody of him, as I am from his clan," Mito ordered in a brisk voice. "We'll see later about anything else. I'll want the files by tonight at the latest." Hiruzen nodded, and she took pity on him and the Anbu, releasing her chakra and killing intent. She could see and feel the Anbu nearly falling from their perches in relief, and she scoffed mentally. In her husband's time, the Anbu had to be able to stand up to Madara's killing intent, which even she couldn't match. Perhaps the chakra was a bit much though. "I will alert you should I so choose to leave the village," she informed him. She swept out of the door, instinctively heading right for the Senju compound. Naruto was trembling slightly. "Are you going to hurt Jiji?" Mito smiled softly at him. "No, guppy, I won't. Unless he stands in my way. If he really, really deserves it, he will get what he deserves." "How's that?" Naruto nodded, clutching at her kimono. She entered the compound without a second thought, the seals she'd installed in the place allowing her and her small charge in. To anyone else, they'd just disappeared. She set Naruto down, feeling her chakra reserves. Just enough to make a shadow clone. Good. All right, guppy, why don't you wander around and explore for a bit? I'll get the main house set up if it isn't already. You live here? Naruto asked, looking around in amazement. Mito smiled, looking at the empty compound. That I do. Now you do too. We can go get your stuff in a bit. After you've had a bath. I don't need a bath. Naruto protested. Mito gave him a very unimpressed look. Guppy, we both need a bath. You will be going first as soon as you're done the exploring, and I'm done setting up the main house. Naruto sighed, but relented, running off to explore the compound. Mito sighed, and quickly made the shadow clone, handing over her scroll for money. She always carried a substantial amount with her, especially during seal testing, as she had learned her lesson when she tried a seal and was stuck in the middle of nowhere with nothing but the clothes she had come in. Now she always had camping supplies, a bit of food, and money. And weapons. Can't forget the weapons. The main house was indeed clean and ready for use. She put sheets on the master bed, and one of the children's rooms, taking care to make the beds neatly. She made sure everything still worked fine, which it did, and began putting away what little food she'd carried with her. There were already spices and other fairly basic food things in the kitchen, including cooking utensils and eating utensils too. Naruto came back before the clone, and she sent him off to bathe, with instructions to get clean, or she'd do it herself, and he wouldn't like that. He scurried off really quick after that, enough that she was struck by his resemblance to a mouse. The clone came back with a good amount of food. It would be too much for any normal person, but they were a pair of Uzumaki, they would decimate any food placed in front of him. Her and the clone worked quickly, cooking food while Naruto was busy getting clean. With how odd the ingredients were, Mito stuck with something she was very good at making. Ramen. An Uzumaki staple if there ever was one, and something she was fond of. Well, perhaps fond of was a bit of an understatement. She sent the clone off to check on the guppy, as the food was almost done, and he hadn't come out yet. The clone dispelled, memories crashing into her mind, and not 2 seconds later, the guppy slammed into her, babbling about how she was the coolest for making ramen. All right, calm down guppy, bowls are in there, chopsticks in there, why don't you set the table? Mito pointed to where the eating utensils were, and Naruto happily bounced off, and Mito noticed the Uzumaki spiral on the back of his shirt. She would have to adjust it for what she guessed was his branch. The Hogo-Uzu branch of the Uzumaki was particularly good at containing Baiju. Their chakra was special, particularly specialized for sealing things away, binding things. Females of the branch had the chains Keki Genkai. Uzusho's bloodlines weren't able to be awakened by males, unfortunately. She picked up the pot, setting it on the table. Naruto was carefully setting a second pair of chopsticks down. Mito took one of the seats delicately, Naruto plopping into the other. Thanks for the food. Naruto chirped as Mito ladled ramen into his bowl. He'd grabbed one of the designated Uzumaki bowls, luckily, as they were the largest bowls in the cupboard. It was a bit of a teasing nickname, but really, only the Hyuga could ever hope to match an Uzumaki in eating. The two clans weren't very fond of each other for multiple reasons, and that was one of them. The others included that temperaments never meshed well, and that the Uzumaki had set their children on the caged bird seal ever since they'd seen it, so every single Uzumaki had the key to remove the seal, and the ability to use it. So, yeah, they weren't very fond of each other. Mito just smiled at him and served herself up some, eating just as fast as he was, but with far more grace and manners. Once they finished dinner, Mito managed to get the guppy into bed, persuading him into wearing one of her kids' old clothes. It wasn't a perfect fit, but it would work for a while. She sent off another shadow clone, instructing it to collect the files, as they should be ready, Inform Hiruzen that she and Naruto would be at the Senju compound, and collect Naruto's stuff from his apartment. The clone came back 3 hours later and handed her a storage scroll with Naruto's possessions. She quickly unsealed, sorted through, then placed his stuff in his room. The guppy didn't have much, and she was well aware she'd need to go clothes shopping for her, as her clothes were a bit outdated, but it appeared she may have to grab stuff for him as well. She was of half a mind to just go to Uzusho, if just to be contrary, but knew the guppy was rather attached to the Hokage, and couldn't bear to do that to him. They'd have to visit at least, perhaps after they got settled in. Mito told him about the Kyuubi that next morning. Naruto, Guppy, we need to have a chat, is that all right? Mito asked. Naruto tilted his head. Sure, what about? A giant fox, Mito said, sitting down, and gesturing for Naruto to sit down next to her. He did so, and she continued. Specifically, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto looked puzzled. It died, didn't it? Mito heaved a sigh. Guppy, Baiju can't just die. They have to be sealed into things. People, specifically. They're called Jinchuriki. I was one, but I am not anymore, due to how I got here. What's that got to do with me? Naruto asked, screwing up his face. Mito sighed softly. Pull up your shirt so we can see your stomach. Do you know how to use chakra? Naruto pulled up his shirt, then looked at her, confused. Chakra. It's what ninja use, Mito said patiently. To do all their fancy moves. Naruto thought about it for a bit longer, then nodded. I got it. So, how do you use it? Well, imagine you have a giant river flowing through you, and put an imaginary rock in it, forcing it to pool in your stomach. Like moving ramen noodles to the side to sip the broth. Naruto screwed up his face again, and slowly, the black seal faded into view. Good job, Naruto, now keep doing that, and look at your stomach, Mito instructed gently, staring in awe at the seal. It was even better than hers had been, and she'd made hers herself. The fourth certainly knew his way around seals. Naruto looked down at his stomach and shouted in surprise. What's that? That, Guppy, is a seal. It contains the Baiju. You are its jailer, and it is your prisoner. Naruto screwed up his face. Isn't that kinda mean? Forcing them into prisons. Mito sighed, a slight smile on her face. Perhaps, but it keeps Konoha safe, and the rest of the world. While some Baiju are content to hide away in unpopulated areas of the world, others, like the Kyuubi, are not. I was the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, your mother was the second, and you are the third. You are keeping the village safe in a way the Hokage cannot. In some ways, you're even more important than the Hokage. The Hokage can be replaced, but finding a new Jinchuriki, especially for the Kyuubi, is no easy feat, especially with Uzusho destroyed and her people dead. What's Uzusho? Naruto asked, dropping his shirt and looking at her curiously. Where Mito corrected gently. It was a hidden village, and it was made up of almost entirely the Uzumaki clan. Stars were in Naruto's eyes. I had that much family. Mito smiled. Yes, you could have, if they were alive today. Uzusho wasn't very big, but they were one of the more powerful villages. Uzumaki have a lot of chakra, more than most people. The Uzumaki clan, myself included, were seal masters. Oh. What's that mean? Mito poked him in the belly, making him giggle. That. And stuff even more complex. Baiju have so much chakra, they almost never run out. And we can contain them with just some ink and a brush. Naruto pulled up his shirt again, making the seal fade into view. Really? And really good ones, like me, can create seals with just a touch. You have to know the seal really well to do that though. You can touch something and do this? Naruto asked, amazed. Mito nodded, preparing one of her favorite seals, a seal that set something on fire without actually burning it. It was great fun to apply the seal to herself, and go into battle wreathed in fire. Madara had certainly approved of it. She touched the table, and black lines spread out from her fingertips. She removed her hand, and the seal flashed bright blue before the entire table lit on fire. Naruto's mouth fell open, almost comically. The table's on fire. And it isn't burning, Mito agreed, pride lacing her voice. Don't touch it though, it will still burn you. It'll go out in another minute or two. Naruto remained staring at the table until the flames went out, the black seal that had been applied fading away. That's awesome, he declared. I wanna do that. Mito chuckled. In a day or two, I can start teaching you sealing. I will warn you in advance, you can't make seals like that at first. On the plus side, you can make explosive tags almost right away. Explosive tags? Naruto asked, almost reverently. Mito grinned. Oh, Guppy, you'll love this. Just give me a moment to change into something a bit more adapted for this kind of thing. She disappeared into her room, and was out again in just under a minute, dressed in her standard mission clothes. Her and Naruto found one of the Senju training grounds, and Mito applied a small explosive tag to a post on one side of the training ground and drew Naruto back so they were almost halfway across the field. She held up her fingers in a one-handed ram seal, and the post exploded spectacularly. She loved the expression on Naruto's face, a mix of amazement, wonder, and curiosity, all wrapped up in a bubble with a generous dose of pyromaniac glee. Oh yes, Madara would have liked this one. Tobirama would have despaired at yet another pyro to pester him about putting fires out. Mito chuckled. Would you like to hear more about the clan? His attention immediately switched to her, and he nodded eagerly. Well, it would be a bit annoying if we just called everyone Uzumaki, as there were getting close to 700 Uzumaki alone, so we had registered branches within the clan. Each branch had about 100 to 130 members. Like branches of a tree? Naruto asked. Mito nodded, smiling. Sure, like branches of a tree, or tentacles of a kraken. I'll explain what those are later. There was also a second clan within Uzusho, a small clan, not quite as many people, perhaps 30 or 40. Naruto nodded attentively. This second clan was the Uzuki clan. They specialized in musical genjutsu. Musical genjutsu are illusions that have been cast by someone playing music. A single Uzuki could only play one instrument at a time, that's true, but with their control over their chakra, and their ability to pay attention to 1,000 different things at once, they could sound as though they had an invisible orchestra at their backs. Naruto's mouth fell open. How'd they do that? They took some of the sound from their own instrument and manipulated it with their chakra so it sounded like whatever they needed. So a Uzuki playing a flute could make it sound like they had a tuba playing alongside them. What's a flute? And what's a tuba? Naruto asked, wrinkling his nose in confusion. A flute is pretty much a stick with holes, it is one of the highest of the instruments. A tuba is one of the lowest instruments, and is a big tube, but bent into a weird shape. Oh, Naruto said, nodding as his confused expression cleared. She could always find one and show it to him later. We're both from the same branch of the Uzumaki clan, the Uzu branch, or protective whirlpool. That sounds cool, Naruto agreed. Mito nodded. The Uzu branch specializes in barrier seals and seals that, well, seal stuff away. Like the one you have on your tummy. She poked him once for emphasis, and he giggled. Our branch also has a bloodline. But boys can't inherit it, unfortunately. Naruto's mouth dropped open again. Really? Mito grinned. He didn't seem too down about not being able to awaken the Kekai Genkai, and that was good. Yep, wanna see? The guppy nodded really fast, and she chuckled, a chakra chain coming from her back. See? Whoa, he gasped, mouth wide open. Mito chuckled. Close your mouth, bugs will fly in. The Uzu branch defended Uzusho, their barriers defended our island, they kept intruders out, and kept our buildings intact, and protected from the ocean. His mouth shut with a click, but the stars in his eyes didn't fade. There's also the Kyusho, or disappearing tides, branch. They specialize in genjutsu and meshing that with seals. They wove illusions around them, they hid Uzusho and our squads from view so we could attack unnoticed. They used a different kind of genjutsu from the Uzuki clan, but the result was much the same. Naruto nodded, and Mito could almost see his mind working to file that away. They don't have a bloodline, but they're still really cool. The Ashino branch is our medical branch. They specialize in medical ninjutsu and healing. They're really good at healing chakra-related things, especially with their bloodline. That means whenever someone bites them, their chakra goes into the person and heals them. They were our healers, using special seals that connected them to every shinobi in our forces, and they healed them all. Whoa, that sounds really cool. And then there's the Akai Arashi or Red Storm's branch. They were the ninjutsu masters. They bent wind and water to their will, and the earth quaked before them, Mito said, using her, admittedly a bit rusty, storytelling skills. They were on the front lines of our forces, using their wind and water ninjutsu to devastate the enemy, and using their seals to disrupt the very air around them so no one else could use jutsu against them. Naruto gasped. They sound so cool. And then, we had the Defender no Sho, the Defender's Tides. They were taijutsu masters, using many styles to their advantage. Their stamina alone meant they could take on a full battalion and still be standing afterward. She may be exaggerating a bit, just for Naruto's sake, but it really was only a little bit. They switched styles often, confusing their enemy, and using seals that they themselves used for training to their advantage, applying them to enemies to make them feel as though gravity had increased tenfold, or like they were trying to walk through solid earth. Naruto gaped at her. That's so cool. Why isn't Uzusho still here today if they could do that? Mito sighed sadly. Uzusho was powerful, yes, but even the best nations can fall. An intruder, a traitor, someone let down the barriers, allowing Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri into our borders. It took 3 nations to take Uzusho down, and they paid dearly for it. Uzusho was destroyed, yes, but it took a good portion of the other nations' armies with it. No one's been back there yet. I wanna go back there someday, Naruto said softly. I wanna see where I came from. Mito smiled at him. Don't worry, Guppy, I'll take you there someday, perhaps in a couple of months. We'll wake Uzusho, and find what was left behind. So, Ni-chan, what's a kraken? Naruto asked, evidently remembering their earlier conversation. Mito grinned. I was waiting for you to ask that. Come, there's a lake just over here. I'll show you there. Naruto eagerly followed her to the lake, where she summoned Kaiyo, one of the smaller krakens. Smaller, meaning she could fit into the lake pretty easily. Kaiyo was a beautiful creature, dappled navy blue and bright orange, which Naruto evidently thought was awesome. Her 8 tentacles were tipped with barbs, and Mito knew there were venom sacs just behind the barbs. She was probably 20 feet long from top of head to tentacle tip. Whoa! You're so pretty! Naruto exclaimed. Like, my favorite colors. Kaiyo gave the rumbly, chirpy, squeaky, and just generally odd sound that was the kraken's laughter. Thank you, you're pretty cute, hatchling. Hello Mito-chan. Hello Kaiyo, how have you been? Bored, no one's called me to sink any ships since the destruction of Uzu. Naruto's mouth fell open again. You can sink ships. Kaiyo laughed again. What, did you think my size was just to show off? I can sink smaller ships easily. You should see the boss kraken though, he could easily sink an entire armada. All at once too, he's massive. Kaiyo is one of the smaller kraken, Mito explained. Where was all that Naruto managed? Mito thought she'd sufficiently distracted him from the fact he had the Kyuubi in him. Also, this was adorable. She'd just have to find the contract, and then he could sign it. Could the other branches do this? Naruto asked suddenly, looking up from where Kaiyo was letting him poke at one of her tentacles. Well, they could summon, but they didn't summon krakens, Mito said, smiling. Kirusho summoned sirens, special creatures that sang beautiful melodies that ensnared people in genjutsu, drawing them overboard where they would eat them. The Uzumaki clan shared these summons. Their songs enchant anyone who can hear, drawing them down to a watery death. Uzumaki have built up minor resistance to their genjutsu, but it's really only enough to not be enchanted when it's not aimed at us. Naruto wrinkled his nose. They eat humans. Kaiyo chuckled. Most of Uzusho's summons will eat humans. Krakens included. Naruto made a face. Are humans that yummy? Kaiyo laughed. I wouldn't know, krakens don't have taste buds. We can't taste anything. Naruto looked scandalized. You can't taste anything. You poor creatures. Mito chuckled. Guppy, chickens don't have taste buds either. Quite a few animals don't have taste buds. I'll just have to ask someone else if humans are yummy, Naruto decided. Or you could ask Kaiyo to ask the sirens or the sea serpents if humans taste yummy, Mito pointed out reasonably. Naruto thought about that. I guess you're right, Kaiyo, could you please ask one of the other species if humans really taste that yummy? Kaiyo laughed slightly but nodded. All right, hatchling, I'll ask them next time I see them. What about the other branches? Naruto asked, going back up the proverbial rabbit hole they'd fallen into. Well, the Akai Arashi branch summoned Kelpies and Pegasi. Pegasi are horses with wings, and Kelpies are white horses with manes of seaweed that live in lakes and eat people, Mito explained. What's it with your summons and eating people? Naruto wondered rhetorically. Mito shrugged. We just like man-eating summons. The snakes eat people too. Naruto puffed out his cheeks and screwed up his face. I don't think humans would taste very yummy. We're not going back down the same rabbit hole we just got out of, Kaiyo deadpanned. Mito chuckled. Right, the Ashinosho branch summons Maz. They're people that are part fish. They're really good at healing and water jutsu. Oh, Naruto said obligingly. The Defender no Sho branch summoned sea serpents. They're giant snakes that live in the sea. With fins. They've got fins too. Naruto nodded. Do they eat people too? Mito snickered and nodded. Yes, they do. I think Maz are the only ones who don't. And if I remember correctly, they can, have, and will. The Pegasi are plant eaters though, they don't like meat. Cool, Naruto decided. Finally, they could go to Uzusho. It had been a couple of months of hassling and getting settled in, but they were finally on their way. Kakashi Hatake, the Hatake Anbu with the dog mask, was escorting them. Even if Mito did not need escorting, thank you very much. She allowed it because the cub had been Naruto's father's student. Close enough to family that she would allow it. Guppy, if you keep running around like that, you're going to tire yourself out faster, Mito said, watching Naruto run back and forth looking at everything. Ma, this is his first time outside of the village, let him run around a little bit, Hatake drawled. Mito sighed. I guess he isn't really that heavy either, so it won't be much of a hassle to carry him. Not that his weight is an issue anyway. She actually wasn't carrying anything visibly, as everything was in storage seals. She also had Naruto's stuff with her, but he was carrying a backpack anyway. He'd insisted on carrying his own Fuwa Injutsu supplies, so he was carrying them in his frog backpack that Mito figured came from Jiraiya, the Toad Sage. Clearly Krakens were cooler, but she supposed everyone had their opinions. Even if some people Madara had more vehement ways of expressing their favorite animal. We're almost halfway there, Mito said, checking the night sky as they set up camp. How can you tell? Kakashi asked, glancing up at the sky too. Mito pointed to a cluster of stars Kakashi somehow didn't recognize. Uzusho's alarm seals begin here, warping the night sky slightly. Some stars become dimmer the closer to Uzusho you get, some brighter. Like the Milky Way, see? It's brighter and has more color than you'll ever see in Konoha. Naruto paused in his wood stacking to gape at the sky. It is. The horsey stars are brighter too. And the belt stars over there are dimmer, and the big measuring cup stars aren't in the right position, and the small measuring cup stars were turned upside down. Kakashi blinked at the sky. What are you talking about, Naruto? Naruto pointed. See. That's the small measuring cup. The big one's to the left and down, the horsey one is over there. I don't know why it has those lines sticking out of its back, but whatever. It's the constellation Pegasus, Mito said. The measuring cup ones are called the Big and Little Dipper respectively. The belt one you spoke of is Orion's belt, you can see the rest of him if you look hard. Kakashi's confusion showed in the quarter of his face that was visible. I don't see it. Mito chuckled. Uzumaki have the stars mapped out in a bunch of constellations, or star clusters. Our minds often fill in the blanks, drawing pictures in the sky. Is there a myth behind it? Naruto asked, abandoning his wood stacking to hop into Mito's lap. Mito chuckled. There is indeed, which you can hear after we've set up camp, and after dinner. And baths, Naruto said. You said baths whenever there was a bunch of water nearby. There's a river over there. Mito blinked where he pointed. Ha, it must have expanded. When I was here last, it was just a tiny stream, barely more than a trickle. And after baths, then. Naruto eagerly scrambled off her lap, going back to stacking the wood, his little tongue sticking out of his mouth in concentration. Mito chuckled, and accepted the rabbit her clone handed her, beginning to skin and clean the animal. Kakashi finished setting up the fire, and lit it, moving on to setting up the tents. Later, once the fire was dying down to warm embers, Mito let Naruto climb into her lap, and started drying off his hair. "Myth now?" Naruto asked, pleading with big eyes. Mito chuckled, and nodded. "All right. So, a long time ago, way before even my old time, the Hogouzu branch was experimenting with space-forward/time seals." "So, nothing new?" Kakashi interrupted. Mito shushed him. "Perhaps, but they were also working with a third thing, dimensions. The seal malfunctioned slightly, sending a single Hogouzu member, a kunoichi named Taishiki, through the seal. They continued experimenting with it, hoping to get her back, when she appeared in the room, only 6 months later." "How'd she get back?" Naruto asked, awed. Mito held up a hand with 3 fingers. 3 people appeared in that room that day. Taishiki, and 2 others. One of them, probably how they'd gotten into the room, disappeared soon afterwards, and the other, had become Taishiki's husband. "Did they have chakra?" Naruto asked. "Chakra, and I'm getting there. The second one, the one who left, looked a bit like us, dark brown hair and eyes, but had 2 things off. 1, their skin was covered in pretty patterns. Geometric patterns, squares, triangles, hexagons, everything." Naruto OD, absently drawing those shapes in the dirt with his finger. Kakashi was still pretending he wasn't listening to the story. The other was their ears. They were furred, like a cat's, or a dog's. Although far more like a cat. Kakashi looked almost startled, and a bit confused. Naruto was just excited with a touch of sleepiness. It was getting to his bedtime. The second person, Taishiki's husband, had wings. Kakashi visibly stared at her in disbelief. Naruto looked beyond amazed. "He did. Like a bird's?" "Well." Mito nodded. "Yep, like a bird's. He had blue feathers, and his hair was blue too, like the sky kind of blue. He introduced himself as, well, Sky. It was in another language, one Taishiki seemed to have learned, and she translated his name as Sora. He understood our language, and could speak it, to a degree." Kakashi looked plain incredulous now, and Mito suppressed a giggle at his expression. "So he introduced constellations to you?" Naruto asked, eyes wide. "Yep." Mito said, smiling. "There sure are a lot of Hogouzu branch people in the stories," Naruto murmured, curling up a bit more, his eyes closing. Mito chuckled. "You'll find that they got up to a lot of things. They're probably the reason for most of the odd genetics that occasionally pop up in Uzumaki." Naruto just yawned in response, head resting on Mito's shoulder as he fell asleep. It took several weeks total to reach Uzusho, as they were traveling only a little faster than civilian pace. "Isn't Uzusho supposed to be right here?" Kakashi drawled, raising an eyebrow at the empty ocean. Mito frowned. "Yes, I'll check for a submersion. That was a thing that occasionally was done to hide Uzusho in the case of an invasion." She reared back slightly, channeled chakra to her fist, and punched the water, shockwaves traveling out from where her fist met the water, water blowing away from where she'd punched, rising up into huge waves that traveled outwards. "Whoa," Naruto muttered, gaping, even with his slightly green face. He hadn't been out on the open ocean before, neither had he water walked. Mito wasn't that surprised about the mild seasickness. Kakashi watched the water flood back in. Would it have been that deep? Yes. Unless. Mito frowned slightly, then her face cleared and she snapped her fingers. It's an old Uzusho legend that Uzusho itself was originally two pieces, a dragon, and an underwater island that rose to the surface only sometimes. The Uzumaki that founded Uzusho used his sealing prowess to chain the island and the dragon together, keeping the dragon immobile, and the island on the surface. So, without Uzumaki to keep the seals up, the dragon flew away and the island sunk into the ocean. Kakashi asked, raising an eyebrow. Mito nodded. She was beginning to think Kakashi was maybe a bit disbelieving of all the things Uzumaki got up to. They had a lot of myths for a reason. Almost all of which were true, no matter what Kakashi thought. Probably. Submersion went too far, I suppose. There's a chance that some Uzumaki survived and got to the water-breathing seals in time, so I'm going to summon Kororumru and see what he thinks. She bit her thumb, placing her hand down on the newly stilled surface of the water and summoning the boss Kraken. Mito-chan, it's been a while. Mito inclined her head. Kororumru, it has. A seal malfunctioned and I was pulled to the future. Do you know what has happened to Uzusho? Kororumru glanced around. It appears it was set free. So the old legends are true? Naruto asked suddenly. Half of it flew away. Kororumru chuckled. Yes, hatchling. Half of it flew away. The other half lies at the bottom of the ocean. Forever linked, but the chain is dormant for now. Mito surveyed the open ocean. Can we reunite its halves? Kororumru shrugged. Or did the equivalent for Krakens. You can try. You'll have to bring Sho up from its watery resting place by activating the chain. That will, in turn, bring the dragon back from its eternal flight. Mito's eyes glittered with the thought of a challenge. All right, Kororumru. Thank you. No problem, Mito-chan. Reunite Uzu and Sho for me. He disappeared in a large puff of smoke. So the two halves are named Whirlpool and Tide respectively, Kakashi mused. Together it makes whirling tides. How can we go get a big island that's all the way down there? Naruto asked suddenly. It's all the way down there. Mito chuckled. Come Guppy, time to learn a very important lesson, Fua Injutsu can do anything. They hurried back to land and set up camp. Mito sat Naruto down and started showing him how to design a seal. Specifically, a seal to let them breathe underwater for a while. It took a day or two, but they worked it out. Kakashi applied the seal to the inside of his mask, and Mito and Naruto applied theirs to their tongues. Well, Mito applied them to their tongues with a touch. Naruto couldn't apply seals at a touch yet. Maybe in a few years. They walked out to where Sho had been. Well, Mito and Kakashi walked. Naruto decided he wanted to swim. Breathing underwater was interesting, and Mito wasn't sure if she'd ever get used to the feeling of water in her lungs, but not drowning. The seal worked by changing the composition of the water just enough for them to breathe it in. Naruto took to it like an Uzumaki to sealing and was quickly swimming around them like he'd been born in the water. Kakashi was a bit more ungainly but soon worked it out. Mito had been swimming since she was a child, so she was fine. Kakashi was clearly disgruntled at being completely left in the dust by a 5-year-old but was unable to comment due to the fact that you can't really speak when you're breathing water. They swam down, and soon it was dark enough that Mito had to apply a light seal to her hand, and use it like a flashlight. Out of the darkness a figure came into view, watching them curiously. It came closer, and into the beam of Mito's light seal. It was a human, or looked like one, anyway, with long red hair in a braid and bright blue eyes. She began signing something, and Kakashi looked taken aback. Mito recognized the signs as Uzusho Shinobi sign language. Kakashi had apparently learned the signs in addition to Konoha SSL. You came from the surface. Why are you here? We are here to revive Uzusho. Mito replied. I am Senju Mito, but my maiden name is Uzumaki. You died a long time ago, the other Uzumaki signed, raising an eyebrow. Seal incident. I am here now, and wish to see Uzusho revived. And they are? She asked. I am Hatake Kakashi. Kakashi offered in Uzusho SSL. A Konoha Shinobi. Helping to fix our greatest mistake. She narrowed her eyes, circling him. Konoha didn't have the Uzusho symbol on their jackets before. We placed it there after your destruction, a reminder that we were too slow to help our allies. And the guppy. Uzumaki Naruto, he is the current container for the Kyuubi. Kushina's child. Where's Kushina? Dead, she died the day Naruto was born. Childbirth. Kyuubi extraction, in addition to childbirth, and a stab through the gut with one of the Kyuubi's claws did her in. Mito signed gravely. She inclined her head. My name is Haihana Akai Arashi Uzumaki. I welcome you to show. Naruto glanced between them, utter confusion on his face. Mito patted his head reassuringly. We have places with air so we can talk without signing, Haihana told them. We will talk at the Kage Tower. Mito nudged Naruto forward, and he grabbed onto her shirt sleeve so he wouldn't get lost, as he didn't know where they were going. Show itself was lit up everywhere with lighting seals. Uzumaki swam along the streets, children mostly hanging onto adults' sleeves, probably for convenience. We have gone up to the surface a few times, mostly into nearby villages to increase the gene pool down here. Haihana signed, waving to a couple of people they passed. We'll be fine for a while yet without being inbred like the Uchiha or Hyuga. Or completely absorbing the remains of the Uzuki clan. Mito chuckled silently. I'm sure. So they're still choosing to remain a separate clan. Yes, but perhaps it's good. Haihana led them straight to a large building in about the middle of the city. They entered through the door, right into air, so Haihana had them breath out as much as they could, then enter, so it was a less painful transition from water to air. Alright, this is the Uzusho Kage Tower. You'll have to talk to the Uzusho Kage before you can actually raise Sho from the ocean, and Chain Uzu. Haihana grinned, gesturing them down a hallway. Naruto blinked at her. What were you doing before? We were using hand signs to communicate, Mito explained quietly. All of the villages have their own dialect of Shinobi sign language, usually abbreviated to SSL. Naruto nodded. I wanna learn. Perhaps later, Guppy. Haihana said. Right now, you have an appointment with the Uzusho Kage. She led them to the Uzusho Kage's office. Right, go on in, I have guard patrol to finish. Perhaps I'll see you around. Haihana waved and walked off down the hallway. Mito pushed the door open, and the Uzusho Kage looked up from his paperwork. Mito. Mofu. She replied, stunned. You're still alive. Kakashi was confused, as was Naruto. You know him. He's my little cousin. Or, was, I guess. You were just a guppy last time I saw you. Well, it seems you have a guppy of your own in tow. Also, I am going to assume ceiling mishap for how you're here now. Mito blushed faintly and nodded. And, this isn't my guppy, he's Kushina's. Kushina's dead, and this guppy is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. And you aren't? Mofu asked, raising an eyebrow. Part of the mishap, so no, I'm not. That's Hatake Kakashi, he was Naruto's father's old student, Mito added. We're here to revive Uzusho. We're here to revive Uzusho. Mofu sighed. We've been avoiding that. The world above doesn't even know that Uzu and Sho separated, Mito said. And Konoha's all but forgotten you. Reuniting Uzu and Sho will do the world good. Mofu sighed again. You'll have to talk to Uzu. We can send you with the next haul of fish in a day's time. I know as well as anyone that no one can stop you when you set your mind on something. Mito inclined her head. Thank you. It was good to see you again, Mito. Likewise, Mito said, turning and herding Naruto and Kakashi out of the door. There's an inn down the street, unused, but maintained. You can stay there. Thank you, Mito said, smiling and ushering Naruto and Kakashi out of the door. A day later, Kakashi, Naruto, and Mito were standing with the buckets of fish. Kakashi had a hand over his mask like he found the scent of fish to be offensive or something, which it wasn't, just overpowering. Naruto was practically vibrating, scratch that, he was literally vibrating with excitement, and Mito was standing serenely. Have a nice trip, Mofu said, activating the seal. They appeared on a platform, staring at a clearly mildly confused person. She had blood-red hair and light purple wings. Hello, Mito said, mild amusement showing on her face. Hi, she said hesitantly. You aren't fish. Mito snorted. Gosh, you don't say. You have wings. Naruto shouted. Like in Nichan's story. Ah, yes, I do. The girl stammered. Can you take us to the leader? Mito asked gently. I am not a high enough rank for this, she muttered, disappearing out of a door in the building they were in. A person with a similar description to the person who dropped Taishiki and Sora off, except with more flowery patterns, poked their head in. Ah, hello. Name? Mito Uzumaki, Mito said, deciding to just go with her maiden name for now. My companions are Naruto Uzumaki and Kakashi Hatake. Ah, we'd better take you to see Samurai. The Zoxine trailed off, frowning slightly. And that might be a problem. Dang it. All right, just, come with me, and we'll figure something out. Mito took it in stride, and picked Naruto up, settling him on her hip, and following the Zoxine out. Kakashi followed hesitantly behind. Uzu was beautiful in its own way. As opposed to Sho, which was dark, save for the seals, Uzu was brightly lit by the sun overhead. Mito was in awe of the buildings, which appeared to float, almost hovering on the cliffs that had made up much of this side of the island. It was clear the houses were built into the sides of the cliffs, with seals reinforcing them. So, Samurai's home and office is kinda at the top of that cliff there. And I'm assuming you don't want to walk all the way up there, hence the problem. Oh, my name's Phantom Mew, nice to meet you. Mito nodded to her. Likewise. Kakashi seemed a bit preoccupied with staring at the cliff and the houses built into it, along with the brightly colored winged people flying around, stopping on ledges, hovering in midair to exchange things. A class was over there, learning how to fly, and then there were the people who didn't have wings, but were flying anyway, interspersed among them. All right, so give me a moment and I'll find an air elementalist. Or a teleporter. Rabenda, can you sort of keep an eye on them in the meantime? I'll do it, a male Fleetwing said, landing in front of them. Mito knew he wasn't fully Fleetwing. The very slight red markings on his cheeks meant he was probably a Fleetwing's Oxine hybrid. You lot down at the fish area are all way too timid for your own good anyway. Hi, my name's Sora. Like the man in the myth. Naruto explained, apparently recovering from seeing so many people with wings. And you're blue too. Mito chuckled, patting Naruto on the head. Careful, Guppy, it's kind of rude to say things like that. Sorry Ni-chan, Naruto apologized. Nah, it's fine. But yes, like the man in your Uzumaki myth, Sora said, smiling. Naruto started squirming, so Mito placed him on the ground. He ran over and started poking at Sora's wings. They're so soft, he exclaimed after a moment. Mito sighed. My apologies. It's fine, Sora said, shrugging. He twisted and moved Naruto in front of him, then carefully spread his wings. Mito was quietly impressed. Sora wasn't a particularly tall man, she herself was 5.5 feet, and she looked him in the eye, but his wingspan was massive. Perhaps 16 feet, give or take a foot or two. Whoa! Naruto said loudly, running back up to Sora's wings. They're so big. Sora chuckled. I do have rather large wings for my size, you are right. Shall we begin moving towards the cliff? We may be able to find a teleporter or air elementalist on the way. Mito inclined her head. Why not? We can get a better look at the city. Sora nodded, smiling. He folded his wings, and turned to walk away. Phantom, you should be able to find us anyway, she's pretty good at that. Mito had to pull on Kakashi's arm to get him moving, but once moving, he followed without complaint. Naruto bounced around Sora. This is so cool. What's teleportation? What's an air elementalist? Mito chuckled, stopping the flow of words. Your father used teleportation. It means going from one place to another instantly. Ooh, Naruto said, nodding. I see. And an air elementalist. Sora took that one, as Mito wasn't quite sure herself. They control the air without using jutsu. Cool. Naruto decided loudly. Emma, I didn't know you were here, Sora said, waving to a slim girl with mahogany hair. She turned, and grinned, waving. Sora. Hello. I'm here with my brother getting some spices and stuff for Onyx. Ah, hello, we haven't had new people in ages. Mito, Kakashi, Naruto, this is Emma, Sora introduced. Emma smiled, inclining her head respectfully. Nice to meet you. You as well, Mito replied calmly. What can you do? Naruto asked, bouncing up to her. She crouched down slightly, bringing her to eye level with Naruto. I can control fire, fly, teleport, read minds, and create stuff. That's quite the list, Kakashi noted, apparently recovered. Emma inclined her head, glancing up at him. You're looking at one of the most powerful royal Zoxines. The other is my brother. How do you create things? Mito asked curiously, narrowing her eyes slightly. Maybe she could make it into a seal. Sure, you could create things with chakra, like the chains, but it was difficult, and took a lot of focus. Emma held up her hand, a dark orange construct forming above her palm, shaping into a kunai. It fell down into her hand, and she handed it to Mito. I kinda condense mental energy, I guess. Most of my abilities are mental based. I suppose your equivalent would be I'm only using yin energy to make them. But that's very clearly physical, Kakashi said, taking the kunai and flipping it a few times. And balanced. Emma shrugged. Bloodline thing. Like my control of fire and other abilities. Mito took the kunai back from Kakashi, examining it. Can I keep this? Emma nodded. Let me see it for a moment though, or it'll disappear the first time I fall asleep. Mito handed it over, and Emma placed both hands on it, concentrating for a moment before handing it back to Mito. There you go, it's pretty much invincible, and doesn't dull, so maybe don't lose it. I haven't tried channeling chakra, but theoretically, it should do it fine. Mito inclined her head, tucking it into her kunai pouch. Noted. Right, so you need to go up to Samurai, don't you? Emma said, glancing up at the house on top of the hill. I can get you there, I am a teleporter. Sora nodded. All right, just alert Phantom Muse so she doesn't have to continue looking. Emma nodded, holding out an arm. Take hold, I can't just extend a teleporting field. I'm not that kind of teleporter. Kakashi tentatively placed a hand on her forearm, Naruto bounced over to hug her leg, and Mito took hold of her wrist. Emma patted Naruto on the head. I'm assuming you can get up there on your own, Sora. He nodded. Of course I can. I'm not injured. Emma grinned, and suddenly they were looking out over the village from the top of the cliff. Here we are. Kakashi blinked a few times, glancing between her and the village where Sora was still visible, leaping into flight. That was awesome. Naruto shouted. Emma blushed slightly. Thank you. Interesting, Mito said, tilting her head slightly. How exactly do you teleport? Emma thought about it for a moment. I'm the punch holes in the space /time /dimensions continuum and go through type. Mito nodded. Cool. I do have to go, my brother is looking for me. Perhaps I'll be able to see you before you leave, but bye for now. She reached down and gently disentangled Naruto from her leg and handed him to Mito. Bye Naruto. He waved, and she disappeared. Just have to wait for Sora to get up here, Mito noted with amusement. Sora didn't take long to arrive, for which Mito was grateful. Naruto was rather excitable, and had nowhere to put the energy, so he was jumping around like a rabbit on caffeine. Sora chuckled when he landed. Excited, are we? Yeah. Naruto chirped, hopping around. Sora smiled, and knocked on the door to the house. Samurai. A red-headed woman poked her head out of the door. Yes, Sora. Come to pester me out of the house and on a walk again. While that would be nice, Sora replied, trying to push the door open further, we have visitors. Samurai opened the door a bit further, spotting Mito and the bouncing Naruto. She smiled. Hello Mito, Mofu sent word you were coming. Where's the other person? Door open a little bit further, Sora grunted, still trying to push open the door. Samurai sighed and opened it a bit. There he is. Last time I saw you, you were barely shoulder high. May we come in? Mito asked, placing a hand on Naruto's head to still him. Sure, Samurai said, opening the door further, and disappearing inside, the barest flash of blood-red feathers making Mito raise an eyebrow. Samurai would have been too old to manifest trays, and Mito remembered Kushina mentioning her mother being a carrier, but not manifesting fleetwing trays. Sora entered first, Naruto bouncing in after him, and Kakashi following, slouching lazily. Mito entered last, closing the door behind her. "So, when'd you stop being old and wrinkly?" Samurai asked, sitting down at her desk, one leg propped up on a cushion. "And dead?" "About 2 months ago," Mito replied, settling on one of the couches in the room, Naruto immediately hopping up onto her lap. "Since then I have been settling in and getting Naruto up to a more appropriate level of skill and health for his age." And dealing with the Hokage went unsaid. "I see," Samurai said. "Konoha doing well then?" "As well as it can be," Mito replied, gently shifting Naruto to a more comfortable position as he started falling asleep. "Why did you wish to meet with me? Other than to inform me you're still alive?" "Not that it isn't nice to know that. I believe it's time for Uzusho to reunite," Mito said simply. Mofu agreed, "But Sho cannot rise without Uzu." Samurai sighed heavily. "I worry though. The rest of the world is not as forward as Uzusho. You've seen, we aren't quite human any longer." "I think it's cool," Naruto murmured, burying his face deeper in Mito's shoulder. Samurai smiled. "You would be one of the few. Children are always more accepting than adults when they're younger. Why don't you try sending a few on joint Konoha missions?" Mito suggested. "See how people react to your shinobi. If things go badly, you can retreat back to the sky, and we'll figure out something to keep Sho up if they so wish." Samurai sighed, absently signing another piece of paperwork. "All right. I can agree to that. But it will be teleporters or stealth types who are on the teams, and they will be chosen voluntarily only." Mito inclined her head. "Of course. I wouldn't ask otherwise." Samurai looked to Sora. "Find the most recent consensus. I think it's next to the fiction book Corey you gave me." Sora nodded, going into the next room. "When will this begin?" Samurai asked, looking to Mito. "As soon as possible. We have another week before we have to head back. And I would like to use it." "Reasonable," Samurai replied, nodding. "I will attempt to find 3 volunteers who will return to Konoha with you. In the meantime, I suggest remaining in Sho, while we have accommodations. It is not easy for those unable to fly or teleport to get around here. I will, of course, send for you once those who will be going with you have been selected." Mito nodded, careful not to disturb Naruto as she stood up. "We will leave you to it then." Kakashi stood up after her, ever silent, and followed her out. Emma was standing outside, conversing animatedly with a young man Mito could already tell was taller than both her and Kakashi. A fleetwing with black feathers was watching the two with amusement clear in her eyes. Emma glanced over a second later, expertly disengaging from the conversation and teleporting over to coo at the sleeping Naruto. Mito smiled. "Hello, Emma." Emma grinned, straightening best she could. "Hello." She chirped quietly. "That's my brother Colin, and our adopted sibling Onyx." Onyx strolled over, adjusting the backpack she had on. "Emma practically dragged us up here a moment ago." "I can see why." "Pleased to meet you both," Mito said cordially. "My name is Mito Uzumaki. This is my guppy Naruto. Kakashi was ordered to guard us." "Something tells me you don't actually need his protection," Colin deadpanned, amusement clear on his face. Mito smirked. "Shh, don't tell him that, he'll get sad." Kakashi glared at both of them, and Emma snickered. "If you're done teasing me," Kakashi said stiffly, "the sun is high in the sky, and I believe it's about lunchtime." Of course, Mito agreed. Do you guys have somewhere to be, or would you join us for lunch? Onyx smiled, I would love to, but I do have to get home and cook our lunch. Emma placed her hand on Onyx's arm. I can come back though. Colin, you staying or not? I'll stay, Colin replied easily. Tell Dad for me, okay? Onyx nodded, and disappeared with Emma. Emma'll be back in a moment, Colin said. She's probably checking to see if anyone was coming over for lunch and requires transportation. Do a lot of people come over often? Mito asked curiously. You could say we have a large friend group, Colin replied. They have other way of getting to us, but Emma doesn't mind, and she's a bit faster. She's faster than most modes of transportation, Mito said, amused. Colin shrugged, grinning, as Emma reappeared next to him. I'm back, she said, grinning. So, know any good places to eat? Mito asked, gently trying to wake Naruto up. Emma shrugged. We don't actually live here, but I suppose we could try that one place you saw while shopping. The curry? Colin asked. It looked spicy. Emma, you're like the only one in our family that likes spicy things. Mito chuckled. I'm sure they have non-spicy options too. Kakashi, what do you think? Kakashi shrugged. If we get a corner, I don't care what we eat. Mito rolled her eyes and leaned over to whisper to Emma and Colin conspiratorially. And you always want the corner. It's easily defensible, Kakashi protested hotly. It's reasonable. Colin inclined his head towards Kakashi. He's not wrong. We're literally in the sky. Emma deadpanned. Who's going to attack us? Evil seagulls, Mito told her solemnly, Naruto looking around sleepily. They want to dive bomb us and poo in our food. Emma snorted, and Colin chuckled. You'll protect me from the evil seagulls, right, Ni-chan? Naruto asked sleepily. Of course, Naruto, Mito assured him. I'll make sure all your food is safe from the evil seagulls. Emma devolved into snickering, while Colin hid a smile behind a hand. Kakashi sighed long-sufferingly. That one's totally going to be spicy, Colin argued. Is not? Emma said, gesturing to it. It's practically the color of milk. Ghost peppers are called that for a reason, Emma. Colin argued, jabbing a finger at the list of ingredients. Naruto climbed up onto the table to see what they were arguing about. It looks kinda spicy to me. Colin gestured to Naruto like he had solved the problem. Emma sighed. Fine, it's probably mildly spicy. Mito chuckled. Trust me, those peppers are anything but. You'd have to have a very impressive spice tolerance to eat them, especially in a curry. Well, I happen to have a very impressive spice tolerance, Emma told her. I might as well try it. Not kidding, Colin groaned. She once ate a ghost pepper accidentally, and barely noticed. Emma shrugged. It was Spite's fault, she's the one that handed it to me. Colin just sighed deeply. Mito laughed. I'm sure you'll be fine then. Here, Naruto, why don't you try this one? It's far milder than what Emma's trying to kill herself with. I am not trying to kill myself with the heat. Emma protested. I just want to try it. If you end up wanting to burn your own tongue off, I'm laughing at you with no remorse, Colin told her. Mito snorted, handing her menu to the server, who looked amused. She told him her order, then the others did theirs. Hello, a clearly Zoxine teen said, ears flicking back temporarily. Mito smiled at her. Hello. Did you come to fetch us? She nodded. My name's Hamako, I'll be going with you. And I'm here to collect you. A teleporter. Mito guessed. I'll go find Naruto. I think he's playing in the marketplace with a couple of the other kids. It's good he made friends so quickly, Hamako said. I should probably come with you, I do not have any need for groceries. Mito giggled softly. Right. I believe Kakashi is watching him, so we'll find both at once. Hamako nodded, and followed Mito out of the air-filled store, and to where Naruto had apparently started a game of tag, the 4 other guppies he was playing with twisting through the water in an attempt to avoid Naruto's somewhat clumsy swipes. Mito stuck 2 fingers in her mouth and whistled, even underwater, the sound getting the attention of all the show guppies and Kakashi. She nodded to Hamako, and patted her leg. Naruto got it, and swam over, waving to his friends, and using the tiny amount of sign language he knew to say goodbye. Kakashi came over as well, looking interested. This the one sent to collect us? He asked, signing quickly. Mito nodded. She patted Naruto's head, offered her hand, which he took, and looked at Hamako. I'm a field teleporter, so we'll be fine. One moment. Hamako focused for a moment, then they appeared in Uzu, in front of Samurai. Mito coughed up some water, then nodded to Samurai while her companions also hacked up water. Samurai. Mito. Meet those that offered to go with you. She gestured to behind them, and Mito turned, meeting the eyes of the 4 people there, all with blood-red hair. One she knew, the other 3 she didn't. 2 female, 2 male. I'm Phantom Mew, but we met already, the one Mito knew said sheepishly. I'm a stealth type with invisibility, flight, and phasing. And I'm from the Hogo Uzu branch. Like me. Naruto chirped, grinning, then coughing a few more times. Mito patted his back to help get the water out. Phantom Mew nodded, smiling a bit. I'm Kawako, a stealth and melee type with light manipulation, phasing, and telekinetic creations. Naruto tugged on Mito's pant leg. What's phasing? And invisibility. And manipulation. Kawako smiled, crouching down. Light manipulation means I can bend light. From the sun, from seals, wherever. Naruto gaped a little. That's so cool. Can you touch it? Kawako giggled. It's too hot to touch directly, but I can bend it. If I tried touching light directly, it'd burn me badly. Naruto got it, nodding quickly. Mito chuckled. Invisibility means you can't see them, Guppy. That's probably why they're called stealth types. Oh. 'Cause they can be super sneaky. Naruto said, vibrating excitedly. One of the males snorted. Yes, tiny fledgling, 'cause we are super sneaky. Bashi, by the way. Sensor stealth type. Defender no-show branch. But what about phasing? Naruto asked, blinking adorably. Kawako held up one hand, and it became slightly transparent. She offered it to Naruto, who tried to take it, only for his hand to pass right through hers. Whoa! Naruto said, grinning as he swiped his hand through hers a few more times. Her hand solidified, and she caught his wrist. The other male shook his head. I am Katsu. A teleporter with wind manipulation and phasing. I'm from the Akai Arashi branch. Mito inclined her head respectfully to each, and they responded in kind. I believe you were to leave today. Samurai asked, drawing the attention back to her. Mito nodded. Yes. Any time would be fine, we must get back to Konoha. She ruffled Naruto's hair, spraying water everywhere with the motion. I won't hold you up then. You can leave now if you wish. Hamako is able to teleport you to the ground. Hamako grinned and waved when Mito glanced at her. All right. Kakashi, you have everything, right? Kakashi nodded, adjusting his backpack. Mito smiled at Hamako. We can go. I will send ahead a notice to the Hokage once we are there, if you don't mind. I can feed the fishes. Naruto cheered. I'll find the tuna, Mito said, smiling reassuringly. I can't give them tuna. Do you know what tuna is? Naruto asked, very serious. Mito pulled up the face she used when Hashirama was being ridiculous, and it was best to play along. Fish. It's fish. Naruto exclaimed. If I gave them tuna, I'd be an abomination. That's cannibalism. Mito expertly hid her smile behind the face. Oh, of course. I'll find the peanut butter then. The other adults hid their smiles behind their hands twitching like they wanted to ruffle Naruto's hair. All Uzusho guppies go through this phase, Samurai told Mito, very clearly biting her lip to avoid smiling. The giving fish tuna is cannibalism phase. Then we teach them that fish eat other fish anyway. Mito nodded, pursing her lips to hide her smile. Of course. I'll have to get on that at some point. Or don't, Samurai suggested innocently. I'm sure all of the cute little Konoha children would love to know about how feeding tuna to fish is cannibalism, and how his friends told him all about it. Their parents would certainly be delighted. Mito agreed, chuckling softly. Wouldn't know any better anyway, Samurai said, grinning. Naruto tugged impatiently on her pant leg. I wanna feed the fish. Mito chuckled. All right, all right. Perhaps I shall see you again, Samurai. Samurai nodded, and Hamako glanced around. Everyone ready to go? The others nodded. She concentrated for a moment, then they were standing outside, next to the beach Mito, Kakashi, and Naruto had originally arrived at. Mito created a shadow clone, handing over her own Fuwa Injutsu supplies for it to create a communication seal with. She made a pair of peanut butter sandwiches, handed one to Naruto, and followed him into the water. Luckily, these were very temperate waters, and as such, beautiful coral reefs lay just offshore. Naruto pointed excitedly at the very colorful fish. Mito smiled and nodded along. He started tearing off little pieces and offering them to the tiny fish that cautiously approached him. Mito chuckled soundlessly, bubbles floating from her mouth as more and more tiny fish clustered around him, some becoming brave enough to come and nibble at the sandwich Mito held in her grasp. Mito let them. She wasn't going to eat it anyway. Naruto squeaked loud enough for Mito to hear him through the water, and Mito glanced up to find him staring at his empty hand, then glance at a very pleased barracuda, swimming away with the remains of the sandwich held tightly in its jaws. Mito chucked, and handed her sandwich to Naruto, who grinned, and started handing out more pieces of sandwich. A moment later, and Mito's clone popped, alerting her that the message had gone through to Hiruzen. She tapped Naruto's shoulder, gesturing back towards shore. He glanced at her, glanced back to find another barracuda trying to steal the rest of the sandwich, somehow managed to punch it, then tore the rest of the sandwich quickly for the smaller fish. Mito ruffled his hair, and started swimming back towards the shore. Naruto followed, kicking the barracuda once more for good measure when it tried going after the sandwiches again. Have a good time. Kawako asked, grinning at them as they exited the water. Mito nodded, ruffling Naruto's hair again. Saw a couple barracudas, one stole the sandwich, and Naruto defeated the other in epic battle. Kawako darted over to ruffle his hair too. Well. You did. How did ya do that? Barracudas are terrifying opponents, you know. They aren't that big, Kakashi muttered. Katsu snorted. You try fighting off 50 of them. We've heard the stories. And it's not even just the barracudas, it's the sharks that follow them, Bashi added. At this point, barracuda stories are to the Uzumaki, as the fish stories are to the fishermen. Although the blood in my victim went this far, stories of the Kaguya, Hamako added, wrinkling her nose. Mito shook her head. Although my fireball was this big to the Uchiha. Confused glances were exchanged. Oh, do they not do that anymore? Mito asked, confused. I figured they'd be somewhat immortalized after Madara proved he could, in fact, do a 200-foot fireball. That's a lot of feet, right? Naruto asked. Mito nodded. A lot of feet is a bit of an understatement, Guppy. And then, I somersaulted, and he flipped, and we crashed. Naruto finished, grinning widely. You crashed into each other? Kawako asked, clearly amused. Naruto nodded. We butted heads, and it hurt, but we were okay. You came home with quite the bruise though, Mito noted, tapping his forehead. Cleared up in a day or so though. Naruto rubbed his head sheepishly. Yeah. Mito chuckled and rolled her eyes. Would those be Konoha's gates? Katsu asked, raising an eyebrow at the gates just barely coming into view. They look unguarded. They aren't, I assure you, Mito said, smiling. Bashi raised his eyebrow. Really? They feel unguarded. If they're unguarded, I will personally strangle the Anbu supposed to be their, Kakashi deadpanned. And they will be on bathroom duty for a month. Hamako snorted, covering her mouth with one hand for a moment. Bashi's feathers ruffled in amusement, and Naruto giggled, delighted at the movement of the feathers. Mito ruffled his hair. State your intention, Izumo said, popping up from his station. Mito stepped forward. Mito Uzumaki, returning from my trip. Accompanied by Kakashi Hatake and Naruto Uzumaki. Izumo flipped through his book, finding them, and nodding. Ah, who are your friends? They're here, and need to see the Hokage. It's urgent business. While Izumo was at least attempting to see professional and not at all staring at the four weird people waiting to enter Konoha, Kotetsu was doing no such thing, and blatantly staring at them. Mito snapped her fingers in front of his face, and he jumped. It's rude to stare, she chastised him. Kotetsu immediately ducked his head. Sorry. Hamako snickered, tapping the jagged spikes of red marking her cheeks and arms. These are pretty stunning. Kawako rolled her eyes. He's probably staring at Bashi. Fleetwings are quite the sight in this place. The villagers in the last 4 villages wouldn't stop staring at him either. Or he just thinks you two are cute, Katsu said casually, clearly enjoying the bright red blush very nearly obscuring both of the girls' marks. Mito bit down a grin. Kawako quickly smacked Katsu on the head, turning away. It couldn't be that. Izumo rolled his eyes. May very well be that he smacked Kotetsu on the head with the notepad, before handing it to Mito. Excuse the idiot germs on it. Mito inclined her head, taking the notepad. I'll do my best to ignore them. Naruto tugged on her pants. That's friendly teasing, right? Mito nodded at him, completely ignoring the friendly cat fight going on behind them. Yes, it is. Good job. Just fill in the right areas, and you're good to go see the Hokage with your guests. Mito smiled politely. If you'll excuse me a moment. Naruto, hold this for a moment please. She handed him the notepad and the pencil she'd pulled out of a storage seal, and headed over to the mild cat fight. Stop that! Kawako said, cuffing Katsu over the head again. I'm just saying. He replied, whacking her hand away. Mito cuffed both of them over the head. That's enough out of both of you. You are shinobi, and you will act like it. Yes, Kawako, Kotetsu would most likely enjoy a date, but he is an idiot, so I wouldn't advise it. Katsu, stop riling her up, we are literally at the gates of Konoha. Did you want your first impression on Konoha to be that of an idiot they probably wouldn't trust to send on a mission? Kawako flushed red, glaring slightly at Kotetsu. Katsu deflated. No, I'll shut up now. Mito nodded. Good. Now, I don't want to see any more arguments. They both nodded sheepishly, and Mito went back to Naruto, claiming the notepad, and beginning the process of getting what information Konoha needed on her companions. Place of origin, oh, this was going to shock them good. Uzu Shogakyo. She finished up and handed the notepad over. If you'll excuse us, we must see the Hokage about an urgent matter. Izumo nodded distractedly, apparently kicking Kotetsu under the table if his sudden jump for the gate meant anything. He opened it, and Mito led her companions inside. Hiruzen was exactly as shocked as anyone would expect him to be, given she highly doubted anyone bothered to tell him about some of the old Uzusho myths containing extra-dimensional people. Naruto kicked the door in, as was expected of the hyperactive guppy that hadn't seen his grandfather figure in a few weeks. Gigi, he declared, hopping over to Hiruzen, only to be stopped by Mito's firm hand on his shirt. Manners, child, she chastised gently. Naruto grinned sheepishly, and she released him. Naruto, when did you get back? Hiruzen asked, smiling at the guppy as he walked over, slower with Mito's gentle reminder. We just got back, Mito said, stepping aside to allow the others in. If you don't mind, Sarutobi, we have a few things to discuss. Kakashi stepped in to show he was back, then abruptly shined out of the window, clearly not wanting to be there any longer than he had to. Bashi stepped in next, and while Hiruzen's attention was on him, the other three stepped in as well. Uzusho is alive and well. These four are here to act as scouts, to see how the world would react to them. Uzu is worried, and has every right to be. Hiruzen blinked in surprise, even as Naruto wormed his way onto the man's lap to look at his paperwork. If you do not mind, Mito paused, spotting Naruto picking up a pen. Naruto, don't do his paperwork for him please. Just because you can copy his signature exactly, doesn't mean you should. Hiruzen gaped for a moment, looking down at Naruto, who sheepishly dropped the pen. Sorry Gigi. It just looked so interesting, and there was so much of it, and you were gonna be busy with Car-san. He jolted to a stop there, glancing at Mito. Mito froze when she heard him call her that. She wasn't against it, of course, if anything she'd been hoping he saw her as a motherly figure, but this was the first time he's actually said so. Naruto. I am sorry. Naruto squeaked, ducking down behind Hiruzen's desk. Mito ignored the quiet suppressed squeals from behind her, and moved to where she could see Naruto, huddled on Hiruzen's lap, trying to hide. Naruto, I'm not mad, just the opposite. Naruto uncurled just enough to peek at her. You aren't? Of course not. She chose to ignore the quiet "that's so cute" from behind her, and opened her arms, offering a hug. Naruto took that as a good sign, and launched himself off of Hiruzen's lap and into her arms. She settled him on her hip, and resumed her position in front of the Hokage's desk. As I was saying, if you don't mind allowing them to go on missions with our Shinobi for a little while to get a sense of how the world will react to them. Hiruzen seemed to reboot his brain, and nodded. He addressed the people behind her. Your ranks. Jounin. For all of us, Hamako spoke, stepping forward slightly. Although, it is by Uzusho standards, which are notoriously much higher than most other villages. Translation: they are all at least Lokage level, Mito said, smiling and adjusting Naruto's position on her hip. Perhaps, D ranks aren't the best option. I'll take not doing D ranks like an academy student, Kawako offered. Or, I guess, your genin do them. Mito nodded to Kawako. Konoha genin do D ranks mostly. I suppose I can arrange that. Come by to pick up a mission in 4 days. That should give you enough time to settle in, Hiruzen said, jotting down a note for later. Mito inclined her head, and the Uzusho Shinobi bowed shallowly. They left, Mito adjusting a now sleeping Naruto so she was holding him against her chest, his head on her shoulder. Much more comfortable for both of them. Kawaii. Kawako said quietly, hovering around Naruto. Mito placed her free hand on her mouth. Sure, I would like to keep him asleep. Not that he's a very light sleeper. Uzumaki rarely are, she noted, shrugging, his wings moving with the motion and drawing many stairs. Not that there weren't any stairs before. The Senju compound is down this way, Mito said, turning down a side street. There is plenty of room in the main house, but you may select one of the other houses in the compound if you wish. Only the middle section is unsealed so I can keep Naruto a bit more contained, and so there is less for me to keep up. We can stay in the main house, Hamako said, smiling. And can help keep the compound. Mito smiled. Thank you. Down here. The seals at the front will read you as Uzumaki and let you in, so do not worry about that. The compound is hidden with Kyusho level Genjutsu seals, and is very safe. I wouldn't expect anything less from an Uzusho seal master, she said, raising an eyebrow at what looked like a basic wall, nothing beyond it. Of course, Mito said, entering the compound, and sensing the others enter behind her. Welcome to the Senju, or rather, now the Uzumaki compound in Konoha. Naruto woke up as they entered the compound, wriggling until Mito put him down. He ran over to find one of the ponds, poking the water a few times. Mito went over and crouched next to him. See, Naruto, they're just fine, Mito said, chuckling. Naruto poked the water again, this time a few fish coming up to greet him and nibble at his finger in hope of food. Oh, those are really pretty decorative koi. Kawako said, leaning over and inspecting the fish. You picked pretty colors. I picked them. Naruto said, grinning and pointing at himself. Mito chucked again. He had picked them indeed. Before she had died the first time around, she had made sure the koi had been given away to other clans, so they wouldn't die when she did, and the compound was sealed. As such, there had been none in the designated pools when she reopened the compound. Not seeing koi every time she looked into a pool had been too weird, so she had taken Naruto to the store to find some koi. Somewhat predictably, he had chosen mostly orange and gold koi, but Mito had managed to convince him to find some of the dark blue and red koi for a bit of variety. "Oh, Naruto, look, the eggs hatched finally." Mito pointed to one of the very small koi swimming around. She had some experience in breeding koi, so she was teaching it to Naruto, who thought it was all quite interesting. "Oh!" Naruto cheered, almost falling in the pond to get a better look. Hamako grabbed the back of his shirt before he did though. "Let's not fall into the pool," Hamako suggested. Naruto laughed sheepishly. "Oops. Sorry." Mito chuckled and patted his head. "Just be more careful next time, all right Guppy?" Naruto nodded rapidly. "Ooh-ha. I got it. It's pretty difficult to get koi to breed in just a random pool bar," she noted. "Well done." Mito smiled as Naruto grinned, brighter than the sun. It wasn't actually all that hard, but Naruto didn't need to know that. The smile he gave was more real than any he'd given just 3 months ago, when she landed here. "Why don't we go get them settled in?" Mito asked Naruto, standing up and brushing off her clothes. Naruto bounced up too, grabbing Kawako's hand and dragging her off enthusiastically. Kawako giggled as she got dragged along, and Mito smiled indulgently. "Slow down, Naruto, we don't want to accidentally wrench her arm out of her socket." Kawako laughed. "I assure you, I'm a bit more resilient and durable than the strength of a 5-year-old. 6 in 2 months. Naruto chirped, slowing down only slightly. "October?" Katsu asked Mito. Mito nodded. "The 10th of October, to be precise." Katsu winced slightly. "Ah, the Censor Guild went into a meltdown that day. Whole guild was freaking out about the Kyuubi's signature." Mito sighed, a hand moving automatically to her stomach. "I bet. I'm sure they were just happy the Kyuubi wasn't released closer to Uzusho." "No kidding," Katsu agreed. Mito moved ahead, opening the door for Kawako and Naruto. "There are plenty of empty bedrooms, so you wouldn't have to share a room unless you really wanted to." "Where did Phantom U go?" Hamako asked suddenly. "Dear stars, sometimes I swear that girl disappears into thin air." "That is one of her abilities," she deadpanned. I am right here," Phantom U offered, flickering into view. Sorry." Kawako sighed, planting a hand on Phantom U's shoulder. This is why you work at the fish deck." Phantom U frowned half-heartedly at her. "I happen to like the fish deck. 'Cause all of you are super socially awkward and avoid conversation at all costs," Katsu noted, poking his head into one of the doors. "Whoa, this your room, Guppy?" Naruto bounced over, grinning ear to ear. "Yep. It's the coolest, right?" Mito stifled a chuckle. It was something all right. He'd insisted on the walls being bright orange, then proceeded to decorate the room with splashes of navy blue. The walls bore striking resemblance to Kaiyo, as did the furniture, which she had also allowed him to paint. Most of the furniture had actually been painted at the same time as the room itself, which had amused Mito to no end. Even if the clean-up at the end of the day had involved 2 showers before he could even bathe, just to get the paint off. While he had been doing that, Mito quickly employed a couple shadow clones to clean up the room a little bit, trimming it in black. To this day, she was pretty sure Naruto had yet to notice. His bed bore little resemblance to an actual bed, and was a bit more like a cave. Or perhaps a blanket fort. With the help of a few sticking seals she had originally given him to put stuff up on his walls, he stuck a few pillows and blankets together, and to the walls that flanked his bed, making a sort of cave to sleep in. The entrance was mostly barricaded, and he usually just wriggled his way in underneath the blanket barricade. The blankets were mostly orange or navy, but a couple were black. Same with the pillows. The frame had been delicately painted along with the rest of his room. "It's very orange," Kawako offered, taking a peek in herself. Phantom Yu glanced in. "It looks like Kaiyo exploded in here." Mito didn't quite manage to suppress the snort. That was a fairly accurate description of Naruto's train of thought. "Kaiyo's very pretty," Naruto told her solemnly. "That she is," Phantom Yu managed with a straight face. Kawako and Katsu fared slightly less well, but managed to keep their faces from rebelling when Naruto glanced at them suspiciously. "The empty bedrooms are anything but the first two doors. The bathrooms are clearly marked, so you shouldn't mistake them," Mito said after a moment, taking pity on Kawako and Katsu. A shadow clone appeared beside her a moment later, and it walked out of the house, closing the door behind it. "We'll need groceries, as we haven't been here for a few weeks. Pick a bedroom and settle down. Dinner will be ready in 2 hours, so entertain yourself until then." There were nods all around, and Mito smiled. "And Naruto, do remember you do have class tomorrow, and I will be coming in for a lecture on summons." Naruto nodded excitedly, practically bouncing in place. Or rather, he was bouncing in place. "Class, you're very lucky. Instead of me lecturing you about summons, Mito Uzumaki offered to come in and teach you instead. As I do not have a contract personally, she will also be demonstrating the jutsu. Car-san's the coolest." Naruto shouted immediately, grinning from ear to ear. Iruka smiled and shook his head as Mito came in, a polite smile in place. "Good morning, children." "Yes, Naruto, I can see you. Please sit down." Naruto sat down immediately, a more bashful expression on his face. "Now, can anyone tell me an example of summons?" Sakura's hand shot into the air, and Mito nodded to her. "The Sannin are famously in possession of the toad, slug, and snake contracts." Sajuk raised his hand too. Mito nodded to him. "The Uchiha clan has a hawk and a cat contract. Niai-san and cousin Shisui have a crow one though." Mito smiled. "Those are all wonderful examples." "Yes, Naruto." Naruto, who'd been waving his hand like a madman, grinned and stood up. "The Uzumaki clan is in possession of the Kraken contract. Car-san can summon them. And I'll learn how to do it too someday. And Kakashi Niai has dogs, I guess, but Krakens are cooler." Mito knew Kakashi was right outside the window, and could practically hear him wilting. Perhaps if he wanted to get Naruto on his side, he should actually try spending time with him, and summoning the pack around him. "Yes, very good, Naruto," Mito said, amusement lacing her tone. "If you don't mind, Iruka, I'd like to bring them outside to show them my summoning contract. Unfortunately, Krakens aren't exactly small, or can move about on land, so summoning one here wouldn't be a good idea." Iruka nodded. "We predicted that. There is a temporary pond set up outside for this purpose." Mito nodded. "All right then, come along children, we have a Kraken to summon." Naruto beamed, practically teleporting to her side. The other children followed, only slightly slower. Once outside, Mito faced the children. To summon a creature requires a sacrifice of blood. Generally, Shinobi will bite their thumbs to draw blood. She demonstrated, drawing some blood and showing her bleeding thumb to the class. "There are hand scenes, but I will not show them to you, as this jutsu can be rather dangerous." And I haven't needed them in a few decades. She winked at the children, then slammed her hand down on the surface of the water, the summoning seal blossoming beneath her hand. That, children, is the seal to summon a creature. Push in chakra, and a massive poof of smoke, and Kaiyo was suddenly occupying the artificial pond. Iruka blinked at the sheer size of the kraken, and a few of the shyer children hid behind others. Hi Kaiyo! Naruto shouted excitedly, waving with all the might in his little arm. Kaiyo waved a tentacle back at him. Hello Naruto, how have you been? Are these your classmates? Naruto nodded excitedly. Yeah. Car-san's showing us summons. Kaiyo laughed, the sound startling a few of the children. I am certainly an interesting way to teach children, Mito. Especially non-Uzumaki children. Mito just smiled. With Uzusha re-entering the world, they might as well get used to it. Indeed, Kaiyo said, a slight purr entering her words. Mito-sama. Mito-sama. Kawako shouted, running in. You wouldn't believe what I found. Mito poked her head out of the kitchen. Yes, Kawako. Kawako snorted at the flour streaking both Mito's face and her hair. Ah, right, so I did find the food coloring, but look at what else I found. She proudly displayed a pair of clip-on fish earrings. It's Uzusho jewelry. What? Mito asked, coming fully out of the kitchen. Kawako snickered at her thoroughly caked in flour clothing. Yes, I know my clothes are covered in flour. Naruto got a bit overexcited with the flour. I'd say they either let you talk to fish, or breathe underwater. It's hard to tell. What are you talking about? Naruto asked, poking his head out of the kitchen. Oh. What are those? These, Guppy Kawako said, holding up the earrings where he could see them. It's Uzusho Gakyo jewelry. We knew some most likely existed, since, well, they are very pretty and foreigners liked bringing home jewelry, but I found some. Naruto bounced up, jumping so he could see better. They're fish. That they are, Mito agreed, ruffling Naruto's hair and sending up a small cloud of flour. You need a bath later, kid. You both need a bath, Kawako pointed out, amused. I'll put these away and you guys can finish whatever you were doing in the kitchen. Making cookies. Naruto chirped excitedly, running back to the kitchen. I don't think he realizes tomorrow is his birthday. Mito spelled out the last word in case Naruto was listening in. A tactic she used successfully both with him and her own kids. Kawako looked intrigued. Are we doing anything? Mito smiled mysteriously. I'll tell you later. Kawako nodded, continuing down the hall with the earrings. Ooh! Looky here! Naruto shouted. Mito entered the kitchen again to find the soon-to-be 6-year-old, holding up a fox cookie cutter she vaguely remembered being in a present from Hashirama. We can find some space for it, I'm sure, Mito assured him, taking the cookie cutter and scanning the rolled-out dough for a space large enough for the fox cookie cutter. Oh dear, it looks like we have to wait for the batch in the oven to be done, we don't have any more room. Naruto pouted, but set the fox cutter on a pile of other cookie cutters. Remember Naruto, we still have a good 15 pans of cookies to do, Mito reminded him. That's a lot of room for all of the cookie cutters. Why don't you find one of the small ones you like, and we can slide it in right here. Naruto started poking through the pile of cookie cutters he'd dug out of the cupboards, looking for a smaller one. The timer beeped, and Mito quickly checked the cookies in the oven. They were ready to come out, so she pulled them out, setting them on top of the oven, and placing one of the cookie sheets of raw cookie dough in the oven. Naruto's head popped up from behind the counter. "Oh. We can put more cookies on the sheet now." "Yes, we can," Mito agreed. "I'll transport these ones to the cooling rack, and you can start pulling off the excess cookie dough from the cutouts over there." Naruto nodded happily, carefully starting to separate the cookie cutouts. Mito quickly transferred the slightly cooler cookies from an earlier tray, placing them on a cookie rack, already full of other cookies. The big plan with all of the cookies was to frost some of them, then take them, and some of the unfrosted cookies over to the nearby orphanage for the kids. The kids could help decorate more cookies if they wanted, or just eat some of the already frosted ones. What Naruto didn't know was that Mito had convinced said orphanage to be the host for a collective birthday for the kids that had their birthdays in the months of August, September, October, and November, including Naruto. She helped Naruto carefully bring over and arrange the cookies on the now open tray, getting as many cookies as possible on the tray. "Fox cutter." Naruto cheered when they had transferred all of the cut-out cookie dough bits. "We have to roll it out first," Mito pointed out, picking up the rolling pin. Naruto nodded enthusiastically, pulling a handful of flour out of the bag and sprinkling it on the countertop before patting it down and incidentally spraying it everywhere. Well, Mito figured that really, they couldn't get much more flour on themselves anyway, and the kitchen was already covered, there was no need to stop him. She rolled up the remaining cookie dough from the last batch of cookies, kneaded some of the cold dough from the fridge into it, then plopped it down in the middle of the flour, incidentally sending up a cloud of flour. She waved it away from her face, then set to work rolling it out while Naruto lined up cookie cutters for her to cut cookies with. 2 hours and a break for dinner later, Mito placed the final cookie tray in the oven. "All right." Naruto cheered, waving his arms in the air. "Almost done." Mito chuckled. "Indeed. Now, you need a bath before the flour on you develops sentience and takes over your body." Naruto screeched. "Oh no. It's gonna eat me." Mito laughed. "Not if we get it off fast enough. Go on, you take a shower or two to get the flour off, put your clothes in the hamper, then you can have a bath. Is that all right?" Naruto nodded excitedly. She ruffled his hair, bringing up a cloud of flour. "I'm going to get this cleaned up, then take a shower of my own. When you're done, you need to go to sleep. We have stuff to do tomorrow." Naruto grinned widely, and Mito handed him a bit of leftover raw dough. "Run along now and hurry before the flour decides to eat your soul." Naruto screeched delightedly as she tickled him, then sent him down the hall. "I'm not going in there until the flour's gone," she noted, leaning on the door frame. "Sorry, but you have no idea how hard it is to get flour out of feathers." Mito chuckled. "Of course. I helped make this mess, I can clean it up." I can help," Phantom U offered, shimmering into being. Mito smiled, moving to the sink to wash her hands. "It would be appreciated." Phantom U nodded, disappearing presumably to find a broom. Mito began collecting the cookie cutters they had used, placing them in the sink alongside the rolling pin and cookie sheets. The timer beeped, so Mito took the cookies out of the oven, placing the tray itself on the cooling rack. They weren't in need of it anymore, so she didn't need to transfer the cookies. Luckily, the kitchen was fairly easily swept up and the flour gotten rid of. "Do you want to decorate a few cookies while I shower and get this flour off of me?" Mito asked, gesturing to the racks of cookies. "Not too many, but I would like to have at least a few frosted for the adults." Phantom started scanning the cooled cookies. Selecting a crooked one, she glanced around the kitchen. Frosting. A seal on top of the mixer, Mito said, poking her head back in. Don't use all of it, save some for the kids tomorrow. Phantom nodded, unsealing some of the frosting. Mito smiled, and quickly ducked into her room to undo her hair, which she had half pulled up for the cookie project, but was beginning to wish she had pulled up fully. She brushed out what flour she could, then quickly showered, and got dressed in other clothes. She made a note to do the laundry tomorrow, after the party. Naruto was sure to come home covered in frosting, and the flour-covered clothes needed to be washed. When she re-entered the kitchen, all 5 of the Uzumaki she was housing had gathered around the table to frost cookies. Look! Look! Kawako said, grinning and holding up a snowman cookie with wings from what looked like a phoenix-shaped cookie frosting glued to its back. It's a fleetwing cookie. You're eating that one, Mito noted. I'm not putting that in the bag for the children. Kawako grinned wider, and nodded happily, setting it aside. Mito pulled up a chair, settling down and claiming a crooked cookie. Remember, we have to leave the majority for the kids tomorrow. Of course, Hamako agreed calmly, holding up a multicolored fish cookie. Don't feed tuna to fish. Or fish cookies to fish, Kawako agreed, laughing. That's it for this part, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. And also tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation. Thanks for watching.